Welcome to Lesson 9, using gradients, filters, and effects. Okay, starting in Adobe Illustrator as usual. I have a clean artboard. I'm going to go ahead and draw a series of objects and show you some of the options that you have with these. As I'm going through these demos, you may want to follow along. You can always hit play and pause as I'm going. Hopefully you're feeling a little more comfortable with the software. Alright, so I have a series of objects. They have a simple one-point black stroke and a white fill. Okay, I'm going to select one of those objects, and I'm going to show you gradient. I'm going to first zoom in a little bit on this so you can see it a little bit better. Okay, for this object, I'm just going to start with a simple gradient. And there are a couple gradients that are listed on your swatches. You can also go into Windows and swatch libraries, and you do have some gradients here as an option. Perhaps I'll start with some of these to show you some of the simple ones. Metals has some nice looking ones. Alright, when you're looking at a simple gradient, you can make a lot of different changes to these. To make changes, you will need to open your gradient window. Okay, and you'll often need your swatches window open as well, so I will usually separate this and pull it away from that window a little bit further and open up swatches with it. And you can always dock these together as well. Alright, so when you're looking at your gradient, you have a couple different options in the gradient window. The first one is the type. You can have a radial or linear, and you can see the look that it makes here. And if you choose a radial, you can also choose the angle at which it is applied, and the same thing for a linear. You can choose the angle so that is more of a slope if you wish it to be. Okay, there's also a couple different options here. These are new to CS5, so if you're working with CS4, you will not see all of these. Today we're just going to work with a simple standard gradient. The colors of your gradient are below. These little swatches come right off the palette, and the way that the colors are configured can be changed with these little diamonds at the top. Now if you want to add or subtract colors to a gradient, it's very simple to do. I'm going to first add a color to my gradient. I'm going to add, I'll add a dark blue. I pick it up off the swatch and I simply drop it on my gradient. And if I choose to take a color off of my gradient, I simply grab this and I pull it away. Okay, and you can change all of these as much as you'd like. You can add multiple colors. You can make a rainbow, like this one is already pre-made for you. And you can also change the colors on this if you wish. Grab it and drop it down. So there's a lot of different options that you have when you're working with all of these. And if you decide you have too many colors, easy enough, just pull them away. And again, this works with linear or radial. It works the same way. Now obviously if you're going to do something with this many colors, you better have a really good reason in your design. It certainly gets pretty busy pretty fast, so do be careful about that. As interesting as some of these things are, they do get a little busy too quickly. I would definitely simplify this for most designs. Even this is a little too busy for my taste, but you know, it's a taste issue a lot of times often as well. Alright, next thing I want to show you is the blend function. I'm going to delete that star. And actually I probably don't need all of these at the moment. Let me delete most of these. Might need them again in a bit, but alright, I'm going to start with one star at the top. I'm going to make that just a little bit bigger, and a smaller one at the bottom. And this works with any objects of any size. They don't have to be the same size, same object, same shape, same color, anything. In fact, to see this effect, it's really better if it's not the same color. So I'm going to select each object and give them a different look. I'm going to make this one of kind of a vibrant purple. You can have a stroke if you want. I'm going to not have a stroke on my object. I'm going to make this, let's do this turquoise color. Oops. And I'm going to have no stroke on this object either. Okay, once I have my two objects and I have them spaced and I have them colored as I wish, I'm going to select both of those objects. Okay, then I'm going to go up to Object, and I'm going to go down to Blend and Blend Options. There's a couple different types that I want to show you. I'm going to show you smooth color, and I'm also going to show you steps. Okay, let's do specified steps first. And you can specify how many. 8 is the default. It's a good way to start. You can also change the orientation as you wish. You'll find out what all this means when we see it. So click OK, and then go to Object, Blend, Make. And this will create a series of objects which basically morph from one object to the other, whether it's a different color, different shape, different size, whatever the case might be. It will create a series of objects that way. You can also go into Object, Blend, and you can reverse it. You can do Object, Blend, and reverse front to back, which stacks them differently. Okay, so there's a lot of different options that you have. Now, as of now, this is a group of objects, and if you want this to be separate objects, if you want each one of these stars to be something which you can move around, you would need to go to Object, Blend, Expand. And once you click Expand, you'll see that each one of these stars is now an individual object. And if you want to move these around, you need to ungroup them. So you can go to Object, Ungroup, and now each one of these stars can be brought out and used as a separate object. This is also an interesting way to create a morphing of colors from one color to another, and you can actually assign these colors to your swatch palette, make them global colors, and use them within your design. So if your design is predominantly, say, yellow and a deep orange, you can create a span of colors or a group of colors that goes from that yellow to that deep orange, and use those within your design to keep that color palette really, really close and really tight and really very consistent. There's a lot of different options here that you can do. Another little trick that I'm going to show you is how to make a 3D object using this. And for this, I'm going to start using with the ellipse tool, and I'm going to create a large circle. Okay, I'm going to give that a fairly dark color, and I'm going to make sure that there is no stroke on it, or no color stroke. Then I'm going to create another ellipse or another circle. Remember, holding down the Shift key will give you a perfect circle. Okay, and that smaller circle I'm going to make white with a 0 stroke, and then I'm going to select both of those objects. I'm going to go to Object, Blend, Blend Options, and in this case I'm going to use Smooth Color. I'm going to click OK, and then do Object, Blend, Make. And you'll see this is a really quick and easy way to make a 3D object. Now anytime you do this, these objects are still separate objects, this large circle and this small circle, but it's also created a whole bunch of smaller circles in here, creating all the gradients. Now if you want to move this around, you can do that. You would have to go to Object, Blend, and Expand, and you see all the different circles. There are hundreds probably at this stage. It does make it kind of difficult to work with though. You can also release at any point in time to undo what it is that you've done. And if you want to move this, if you decide that highlight needs to be on a different side, for instance. Pretty easy to work with. Okay, so that is the blend function. You'll use the blend function a lot the more that you work with Illustrator. So it's pretty convenient. All right. Next tool I want to show you is one that I have actually shown you a little bit before. I'm just going to start with a star, for instance. And I've shown you a little bit of the filters and effects and the tools that you have on those. I just want to show you a couple more just so you have a better feel for it. Make this a little bit easier for you to see. Okay, once you have an object drawn, no matter how simple it is, you can kind of fancy it up a little bit. A number of the things I'm about to show you, you can also access through shape builders and through some of the effect tools over here. I do use these on occasion, but I find these less controllable. But these are good if you just want to do a part of the object, for instance. I'll show you the swirl tool. It's just a little bit harder to control. But if you play with it a little bit, you'll see that it can do some interesting things. But it's definitely less regular. So it depends again on the look that you're going for. For this object, I'm going to go up to Effect and Distort and Transform. And there are a number of different ones in here that I kind of like to play with. And again, you need to make sure that any of these effects that you choose to use are used with purpose and that you have a reason for using them. But some of them can be pretty powerful and they can give you some nice options for your objects. You can see it's a very, very simple way of getting a much more complex looking object. And that's under Filters and Effects. And there are dozens under here that I encourage you to experiment with. There's 3D effects that you can play with. Distort and Transform is where I was. You can also go down to the Effects Gallery, and there are probably hundreds of different types of things that you can do with your objects. And it really is a matter of experimenting with these and to see which ones that you like best. When I give you guys the drawing exercise, I also assigned that grid, and on that grid I used a lot of different stylizing features and some of the Distort and Transform. I used a lot of these different types of things to create those different looks for the oak leaf that is included in that exercise. Okay, the last thing I want to show you is graphic styles. I gotta find graphic styles. I don't use it very often. Symbols. Alright. All this fails, go in here. Graphic styles. There we go. It was under that one. Gotta be more patient. Alright, there's a lot of different graphic styles in here that you can use. And they do take some time to assign, so you have to be a little patient. And you don't want to play with these too much on really involved graphics. You want to keep these to a fairly simple object, at least at first, while you're experimenting. And there are also graphic style libraries under Window and graphic style libraries. And I've had students use a number of these to great effects. The neon effect seems to be quite popular, and we have used this quite often. Zoom in so you can see that a little bit. You see it kind of gives this neon effect. And some of these are a little bolder than others. And the graphic styles, there are dozens of these as well. And they're all under the libraries. You can also create and save a different graphic style. There's also scribble effects in here, which you might recognize from one of the oak leaves. But that's another option, and these are all different graphic styles. And this is just something that you'll want to experiment with as you work with Illustrator. But there are a lot of different varieties open to you. So again, these are very simple ways of making a really very simple looking object to be something much more complex. Now, you don't necessarily have to draw the most ornate objects. You usually have to do some, of course, but sometimes you can get something quite simple to be created this way. Alright, that is the end of Lesson 9. On Lesson 10, we're going to look at advanced control and some printing issues as well.